Hi, my dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to Pathways of Hope. This is Bobby Kitain. God is often said to be a God of mercy. They say that God is all merciful, that no matter how many times we sin, God will always forgive us. And that is true. But we also say that God is a God of justice. And hence we need to temper mercy with justice. But how exactly do we do that? How exactly do we temper mercy with justice? Speaking of justice, I'm a lawyer, and our role is to make sure that justice is served. I'm also a law professor. I teach legal ethics. And in legal ethics, we discuss often how a lawyer who is disbarred gets to be reinstated into the profession. And I will use this particular analogy to apply it to our gospel for today. Our gospel is taken from the 18th chapter of Matthew. You see, when a lawyer is disbarred and he applies for reinstatement, before the Supreme Court forgives that lawyer, there are certain conditions that he must meet. There are many, but allow me to share with you three. And three R's: remorse, reformation, and restitution. First, remorse. The lawyer must show to the Supreme Court that he is really remorseful of what he did, that he accepts his fault, and that he is sorry for what he did. Pretty much like the servant in today's parable in the gospel. When the servant was asked by the master to pay, the servant begged him. The servant asked for his mercy upon him. The same thing with us. When we want to go back to God, it's important that we show to the Lord that we are remorseful. And that's why when we go to confession, we often begin it by saying, "Oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended you." It's an acknowledgement of our sin. It's an acknowledgement of our fault. So the first way by which we return to God and receive His forgiveness is by being remorseful, accepting that we have sinned and that we are sorry for it. The second R is reformation. There must be some showing that the lawyer has reformed before the Supreme Court will reinstate him. In fact, the Supreme Court will ask for some referrals, endorsements, and the Supreme Court will ask him, "What have you been doing the past years that you have been disbarred?" The same thing in today's gospel. We realize that the first servant who was forgiven by the master did not really learn from what happened to him. Instead of being thankful and grateful, he was even more proud of himself and boastful and arrogant. And he even tried to squeeze out the debt of this other person to him. Instead of being grateful for being forgiven by the master, he did not give the same forgiveness to the other person. In other words, there was no reformation. There was no change in him. The same thing with us. One of the ways by which we return to God and receive God's forgiveness is by showing to the Lord our desire to really change, our desire to really be a different person, our desire to mend our ways and to follow God. And the last R is restitution. If the lawyer offended somebody, the Supreme Court would often say, "Okay, before we reinstate you, you have to reconcile with this other person if it's still possible." Okay, so if restitution is no longer possible, then fine. For instance, if the lawyer, for instance, was able to do something that could no longer be restored, then you will no longer be required to do that. But if he can restore what was lost, for instance, he owes somebody money and he is still able to pay, then he should pay. He should pay, because that is restitution. In today's gospel, we see the two servants telling the master, the first servant telling the master, "I want to pay. Give me time to pay." The same thing with the second servant. The second debtor, "I want to pay. I want to pay," he said. So there is that desire to restore what was lost. And the same thing with us. It's not enough that we are remorseful. It's not enough that we reform. If it's still possible, restore. Restore what was lost. Restore what can be restored. Pay what you owe. My dear friends, restitution, reformation, and remorse. These are three things that we need in order to return to God and receive in full the mercy of the Lord. May you come to the Lord today and receive His mercy through these three things. God bless you, my dear friends.